Hello everyone and welcome to EPSN, Emory Professional Sports Network. I am Sean Farshi and I'm sitting beside Michael Dix, Josh Neemzow, and Mohammed Omar. And today we will be discussing key topics in the NFL and NBA today, and we will begin with our NFL section. Colin Kaepernick has quickly become the face of the 49ers during his playoff run, which includes his single-game record of rushing yards in a game for a quarterback against the Green Bay Packers. However, Kaepernick's success comes in the expense of Alex Smith, who completed over 70% of his passes and had a 104.1 passer rating while he was the starter of the 49ers before getting benched after his concussion mid-season. Our first question for our NFL section is, would the 49ers have made the Super Bowl this year if Alex Smith remained the starting quarterback? Josh?
No, Sean. Alex Smith was not a good enough quarterback to lead the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl. And they were a good team, don't get me wrong. And they were definitely going to make the playoffs, and they may have won one game there. But the reason why the 49ers were so successful in this postseason, it was because of Colin Kaepernick's spread option read and the redesigning that offense to where just not even Colin Kaepernick's running ability, but the threat of Colin Kaepernick running was enough to confuse every defense they played, whether it was the Green Bay Packers or the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, if you go back and look at the tape, you see that the linebackers were frozen because in the first game against the Green Bay Packers, Colin Kaepernick burned them for that 50-yard rushing touchdown. He just burned them running. But if you look in that next game against the Falcons, they played the run. They were so scared of Colin Kaepernick that they put a spy on him, and even though he didn't run at all that game, he was still able to be successful. And because of that dimension and the threat of running, the 49ers became a Super Bowl team.
Okay, and Mohammed, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm curious on what you have to say, Sean. I feel that you might say something ridiculous on this one.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with both of you. I believe in Alex Smith. That's the short of what I'm saying. He completed 70% of his passes. He, as I said, had a 104.1 passer rating. They were within 2 fumbles by kick returner Kyle Williams of reaching the Super Bowl last year. And what I thought was that Giants team that won the Super Bowl last year, I think, is stronger than anything the NFC has had to offer this year in terms of being a more complete team on the defensive side. And also, the 49ers are loaded everywhere. Just because Colin Kaepernick is the quarterback doesn't mean you have a number 1 defense in scoring defense per game. Colin Kaepernick also, while he is more effective, I think he's the better player. I agree with the decision that they made. I still think they're a Super Bowl team because Alex Smith does not turn over the football. He can run if needed. It's not, obviously, the pistol option is very successful, but he can also complete passes. He had one of the best playoff games in a while against the Saints. He completed a great comeback, and Vernon Davis was still involved in the offense with Alex Smith as the quarterback. And with that offensive line, a top offensive line in the league, with Crabtree developing, albeit with Colin Kaepernick, and just they're a complete team throughout. They have a top secondary linebacking core, and their pass rush is still improving as Justin Smith gets more healthy. So I think overall it's the best team in the NFC, regardless who you put under center from those two.
You know, I had a feeling you were going to say that, Sean. And I couldn't disagree more. Because you have to look at 2 counts in the playoffs. Alex Smith scored plus 31 against Green Bay? No, he can't. And 2, can Alex Smith come back against Atlanta? He can't. And there are 2 reasons why. Alex Smith, what Colin Kaepernick does, apart from running, is he can throw the deep ball. With his running threat, teams are forced to come in. You've seen a significant addition to the 20-plus yard passes. That is dangerous. And then when you look at the Green Bay game, Alex Smith is mobile, but Colin Kaepernick brings in the Michael Vick type danger of running. and
The old Michael Vick.
the old Michael Vick, and you can't. It's undeniable. This offense has transformed since Colin Kaepernick has come. He came in. Alex Smith was 6-2. It was a solid start. They were a solid team. Colin Kaepernick comes in. He's 5-2 plus 2 playoff wins. But these wins, you just see an offense that can score at any point in the field. We saw in the New England game, and we saw in the Green Bay Packers game, and in the Atlanta game, he could come back. Alex Smith could never do that. They relied on defense, the running game, and then Alex Smith not turning over the ball. That doesn't get you back in games. That's why that's what you need in the playoffs. You need to be able to come back in games, and that's why Alex Smith would not have been able to beat Green Bay, let alone Atlanta, in the playoffs this year.
Well, as a counter, I'll start with week 1 in the regular season. The San Francisco 49ers played the Green Bay Packers, in which they were victorious, and Alex Smith put up 30 points. The Packers are not a defensive juggernaut. And also a big reason that the 49ers came back against Atlanta was the success of Frank Gore, who in fact had 8 games of Alex Smith, 8 games of Colin Kaepernick, had 100 more yards in his 8 games with Alex Smith. He ran well against the Green Bay Packers in that game. He had over 100 yards and a touchdown. He threw 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in the playoffs last year, so you can prove that he's not just a regular season quarterback. I think that Colin Kaepernick is the better move. I think the pistol offense is great. Hopefully it works in the Super Bowl for them. I'm not entirely sure it will last. But I still think there's 2 fumbles within the Super Bowl last year, and they're a better roster overall this year.
Sean, I disagree with you on a few counts, too. You said that the 49ers were the best team in the NFC, and I disagree with that. I think it was the Atlanta Falcons. And if you look at that Atlanta Falcons game, I don't think Alex Smith is winning that. And also, with that Atlanta Falcons game, the reason they were able, in my opinion, the reason they were able to win that one is because, like I said, Colin Kaepernick, the threat of Colin Kaepernick running was enough to open up rushing lanes for Frank Gore. And Frank Gore had a really good game. He was getting multiple, 10, 12-yard carries. And you're not going to see that with Alex Smith. Also, I really like these stats. You showed these stats, 104 passer rating and 70% completion percentage. But the guy is a dink and dunk. The guy is not going to throw the deep ball. The guy, he had great stats, but no one's talking about him being one of the best quarterbacks, even with those remarkable stats, because he's not a deep. He doesn't have a deep threat, and he pads his completion percentage with 8-yard, 5-yard passes. He's not Mark Sanchez, but he's not a great quarterback.
Also, I think the stat you have for Gore kind of shows why Kaepernick is the better quarterback. They didn't have to rely on Gore as much. And also, he made his players around him better. We saw the evolution of Crabtree from a good receiver to a borderline Pro Bowl receiver.
Well, I will just... Well, in the Atlanta game, a big reason was Vernon Davis getting open and beating the linebackers. He's still going to be open, regardless of who's under center. Although, also, in that game against Atlanta, while it seems like he was getting huge gain after gain after gain, he still had 4.3 yards a carry. He's still getting the ball a ton. He's not posting excellent or world groundbreaking yards per carry averages. He's averaging 4.3. Adrian Peterson, obviously this is a separate matter, but Adrian Peterson averaged 2 yards more per carry in the regular season. It's not as if Colin Kaepernick has been successful in what he's been doing so far. I believe that with this roster that has first team All-Pros in the secondary, in the linebacking core, and possibly in the pass rush, I believe Aldon Smith made it. I think they're loaded throughout, and I don't think it would make or break them being the champions of the NFC. While the Falcons were good in the regular season, they also, after Michael Turner got hurt, they lost their edge and they lost their balance. And Colin Kaepernick doesn't run the defense. The Atlanta Falcons did not put up points in the second half, and that's what fueled the comeback. And the Saints game proves that he can come back.
The Saints defense, and it still is terrible. And
Disgusting.
On the Green Bay game, the Green Bay Packers of week 2, was it? Week 1? It's not the same Green Bay that was hot during the end of the season.
Definitely. They were awful. They were in the start. They were surprisingly awful. The Green Bay Packers. So they're not the same team.
Wait, the same hot Green Bay Packers that lost to the Christian Ponder-led Minnesota Vikings in Week 17, the same one that allowed 37 points to Christian Ponder.
They were
we are talking bottom of the barrel here.
Then they went back to Minnesota. Then they took Minnesota the week after and destroyed them. And the one slip up does not take.
The Vikings goes the starting quarterback, and look what happens.
Vikings
they only put up 20.
The Packers were hot.
Okay, and our next question has to do with the other team who made the Super Bowl and their quarterback. So Joe Flacco, this past April, declared himself the best quarterback in the NFL coming into his contract season. Likely a ploy for him to get more money for his agent and himself. And this season he overcame a large hurdle in his career, reaching a Super Bowl for the first time. And he has been quite tremendous this postseason, actually, posting 8 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions, and he has led his team to average over 30 points per game, including 2 of the games in which we're on the road, where he has struggled often this regular season. And our second question is, if Joe Flacco and the Ravens win the Super Bowl this year, what does that mean for his legacy? Mohammed?
When looking at Joe Flacco, I like to come back to Eli Manning. Eli Manning, in his Super Bowl year, had a quarterback rating of 73.9. People were calling for his head. They were calling for Tom Coughlin's head, and then he goes through a magical Super Bowl run, and he had 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, and then everything changed. The second year he won the Super Bowl, he came off a year he threw 24 interceptions, and then people continued to doubt him. He won the Super Bowl, and now we're talking about him as an elite quarterback. Mm-hmm. The difference between Joe Flacco and Eli Manning is that the team relies on Joe Flacco more. Joe Flacco has thrown 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Yeah. And this team, we see in the Denver Broncos game, we didn't see this with Eli Manning, his first Super Bowl run, relied on him a lot. And that is why, if Joe Flacco wins the Super Bowl, he will get paid, no doubt, and he will be considered one of the great quarterbacks in this league.
No, Mohammed. I disagree completely. I mean, come on. Look at these. Just because you win 1 Super Bowl as a quarterback doesn't mean you're elite. Okay, Brad Johnson, Trent Dilfer. I know that Joe Flacco is not Brad Johnson or Trent Dilfer, but if you win 2 if you win 2 Super Bowls, then we start talking about elite. I mean, I'm not even elite. You know what? I would not say elite. I would say you start looking at Hall of Fame. Because I don't believe Ben Roethlisberger and Eli Manning are elite quarterbacks. I believe that they are Hall of Famers based on their resumes. And, if he wins 1, yes, he's on his way. But, for him, he needs to get 2 from me. And he needs to get 2 for me to believe he's elite. And also, you know what? He just, like Muhammad said, he pulled an Eli Manning. He got really hot in the playoffs. But this year, Joe Flacco was really inconsistent. And there were some games where I said, man, this guy, he's better than Matt Ryan. This guy could be a top 5 quarterback. But then there were others where he was just awful, and I mean this definitely improves his legacy, but he by no means has earned the respect of the elite status. And how many quarterbacks can you say at one time are elite? I mean, there are a lot of guys ahead of him. So if he's the 8th best quarterback right now, it's not elite.
Well, I'm going to take sort of a different stance, sort of almost a neutral stance of sorts. The first thing, he is only in his 5th season. It took a lot of these quarterbacks a long time to win their first Super Bowl. And also, just a few things. My first comparison would be to Ben Roethlisberger, someone who doesn't bring it all the time, but he has been a big game quarterback. In general, he's the only quarterback ever to make the playoffs in his first 5 seasons and win a playoff game. People were freaking out about Tim Tebow winning 1 playoff game. He's done that every year of his career for 5 years now, and it doesn't seem like he gets the credit. I think Ben Roethlisberger is a very easy comparison, just due to the fact that they're both inconsistent, they're defensive-minded teams, but Joe Flacco has a little bit more weight than Ben Roethlisberger carried in his first Super Bowl. in Eli Manning's first Super Bowl. And I'm going to also stretch this to Brady's first Super Bowl, in which he threw 572 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception in his entire playoff run for the New England Patriots' first Super Bowl in that year. And those New England Patriots teams averaged 20 points a game, while Flacco's averaged 30 points a game. And then we go to his second Super Bowl season, 24.3, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Still comparable. And then his third is 28 points per game, 5 touchdowns, and 587 yards. So you could argue that this Joe Flacco run is better than any of Tom Brady's. Obviously, you have to do it 3 times and prove it. But this playoff run, if he completes it, if he has a great game, if he wins the Super Bowl MVP, this is one of the best playoff runs by QB we've seen almost ever. I mean, obviously, depending on how you judge quarterbacks, I put a lot of stake in the regular season, and I'm a huge Peyton Manning supporter. I think he's the best ever. But if you're talking about who can come in and win playoff games and make plays, he embarrassed Tom Brady in New England.
And to address Josh's point, I never said he was elite. If he wins the Super Bowl, he won't be elite yet, but he'll be validated as a great quarterback.
Great? You're throwing around words.
The quarterback you need to pay who needs to be on your team, because, as Sean was saying, this is better than any of Tom's Super Bowl runs, better than Eli's Super Bowl run. I remember Peyton Manning didn't have the greatest Super Bowl himself, so I mean I don't know the stats on that one, but this is one of the best Super Bowl runs of we've ever seen. And Joe Flacco doesn't get the credit he deserves. Every year he's gone to playoffs, every single year, and I think a majority of fans still believe that Matt Ryan is better than him. Which after this year, I throw the Matt Ryan. I throw that out.
Joe Flacco hasn't put up 4,000. He's not consistently putting up 4,000 yards. I think for you to be an elite, or I know you didn't say elite, but I think for you to be an elite quarterback, you need to either win multiple Super Bowls or be Peyton Manning, like a game-changing quarterback. That guy, who just gets up to the line, calls the audible, and commands his offense. And even though he's only won 1 Super Bowl, yeah, he's an elite quarterback, and we recognize that.
I think that he's on track. I mean, he's only 5 years in. I think he's done a phenomenal job. Anything they could ask for at the number 18 pick, a guy out of Delaware, to win this playoff game in each of his first 5 seasons and bring a Super Bowl in his 5th season would be a tremendous return on value. I just think that he's not there yet, but he's on the winning track. I think that even if he's inconsistent, if he could win 2 or 3, then he really could. You could honestly, debatably put him up next to Tom Brady. But do it multiple times, obviously.
Yeah.
If he continues on track. Okay. And after we've debated both of these teams and the quarterback situations, now we will shift our focus to the game. And this Sunday, in case anyone is still wondering, the 49ers will be playing the Ravens in the Super Bowl. And I'm going to ask you guys, who do you believe will win the Super Bowl and why? Josh?
All right, I say the Baltimore Ravens will win the Super Bowl. My prediction is 28-23. It's going to be a close game, but if you remember the last time the Harbaugh brothers played, it was a 16-6 game. But this game is completely different. These teams have put up a lot of points in the playoffs, and these are 2 different teams. Baltimore doesn't have to rely on its defense as much as it did the previous time they played in this Thanksgiving game. And the 49ers, likewise, they're putting up lots of points too. I think they win this one for Ray and for Ed Reed, who becomes a free agent this offseason at age 34. And I really see John Harbaugh trumping his brother. I really think that John Harbaugh will be the most effective at stopping his brother's new offense with the Greg Roman's spread option, like I've been talking about with Colin Kaepernick. The Falcons haven't been successful at it. Weren't successful stopping it. The Green Bay Packers weren't, but I think the Ravens will be, and I think this will be in the 20s. Like I said, 28-23. It's going to be a great game, but the Ravens are winning it.
I have to agree with Josh. I think the Ravens have this game. I think we can see it in the conference championship. They shut down the Patriots, the best offense these past few years. And I think if they can shut down the Patriots, they can handle Colin Kaepernick in the San Francisco offense. I think it will be a close game. I think both teams are extremely talented. And, they both. It's going to be a really good game. I have the score 23-17. I can go back to what Josh says. I mean, the defense will be able to contain Colin Kaepernick's offense. He'll be. The book is still being built on him. And over these next 2 weeks, I have to believe that the Ravens D coordinator and John Harbaugh will be able to figure it out. At the same time, Joe Flacco's had a magical run. This seems to be his time, and I really believe the Ravens will win this game. I have it at 23.
And just before you talk, Sean, the Ravens beat who I thought were the two best teams in the NFL, the New England Patriots and the Denver Broncos. So I'm very impressed, and if they could beat them, I don't see them losing to the 49ers.
Guess we're all on the Ravens, as Chris Berman likes to say, and I'm going to have to agree with you guys. I think that I have the score at 21-19 in favor of the Ravens. Another stat in which I didn't mention before, I don't really have the specific number, but while you think that the pistol option would improve the 49ers in the red zone because you have more threats to score on the rush and pass, the 49ers were actually a better red zone team with Alex Smith as the quarterback. And I think, although San Francisco has a great defense, I think their issues will lie defensively. I think that they haven't... when the Falcons had Michael Turner, they were the better football team on the field that day. And I think that facing a running back like Ray Rice, who can catch the ball out of the backfield, who can rush well, in general, he's a much better running back than Michael Turner or DeJuan Harris. DeJuan Harris even had a pretty good game against the 49ers, which is shocking considering their first-ranked rush defense the year before. And then also the tight end, Tony Gonzalez, obviously, is an excellent tight end, and Dennis Pitta doesn't quite compare, but he also had a field day, too. And Julio Jones had 182 yards. Roddy White had 100. Anquan Bolden is playing out of his mind. Torrey Smith can beat you deep like Julio Jones can because he is honestly could be the fastest player in football if Mr. Flacco puts it on target. And you have Jacoby Jones, who caught that long pass against the Broncos, which also could go down as one of the luckiest plays in playoff history. But it also shows that he is a deep threat running down the field, and he's still a threat to score. And also, the Ravens' defense, while they were pretty average in the regular season without Ray Lewis, he's tackling well, although he can't cover quite as well. But Frank Gore is not a receiving running back. That's not going to be a huge factor. So he's tackling well in the run game. I think he's going to be the one that's going to be watching 2 weeks of tape. He will, I have a feeling that if they decide to give it to Gore, he will get under 3 yards a carry if they try to do the same thing against the Falcons. I think Kaepernick, it's too much on his shoulders. I think the Ravens could go up early on a couple big plays. I think that I can't trust a guy in his 10th start in the Super Bowl. Just the history is against him. And Flacco's been excellent. The last 4 QBs to throw 8 touchdowns and no interceptions in the playoffs all won the Super Bowl. So the history is on the Ravens' side.
I think no matter what, this will be a great Super Bowl, and I think that unlike other years, there's no antagonist. There's no team that you want to root against, and that's what I like about these. These are two likable teams, the Ravens and 49ers.
If Kaepernick can pull it off, I think his legend just grows exponentially. Mm-hmm. But I don't see it happening.
He gets a big contract as soon as that rookie contract expires, if he wins it. I mean, no matter what.
No matter what, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, and that concludes our NFL section for today. And now we begin our NBA section of the show, and our first question, that has been covered, obviously, in many different media outlets due to the fact that they're very high in a very large market. The Los Angeles Lakers, with a team full of superstars including Dwight Howard, Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, and Pau Gasol, have this season had a record of 19-25, albeit with a 2-game win streak, which is a record that is very disappointing in the eyes of Lakers fans and neutral fans of the NBA game. And our first NBA question for today is: if you were the general manager of the Lakers, what would you do to secure the short-term and long-term future of the team? Michael?
Well, personally, I would trade Dwight Howard. All he's done in the past year is brought an unreasonable amount of drama to the team. He breaks up the chemistry that Kobe and Pau Gasol have had over the past couple of years to the point where Pau Gasol is being benched, and he's terrible at the end of games as teams can just foul him in the fourth quarter until there are 2 minutes left. So personally, I would trade Pau Gasol. Dwight Howard.
Dwight Howard, yes. And Mohammed?
I think you're right the last time. The last thing you said. I would trade Pau Gasol. He's been benched. We came in thinking that Pau and Dwight could work together, but the issue is Pau and Dwight, in a way, play similarly. They both rely on the pick and roll for their offense. While Pau can step back and hit the shot, it's without the pick and roll, Pau is kind of lost in this offense. That's why he's been benched. I just believe Dwight is too talented to trade. He gave up too much, and trading Dwight right now would just, especially because his contract ended this year, would just be difficult. I think Pau needs to be traded. He's getting older. They've tried to trade him before. The chemistry just isn't there anymore. It's better to move on and try to see what you can get for him.
With Dwight Howard's contract ending, though, wouldn't you want to trade him? What if he wants to leave? Then you get nothing for him instead of maybe getting a huge package deal with him.
The thing is that I think Dwight's toxic right now. I don't think teams want him or would want to trade for him.
If teams don't want him, then why would you think the Lakers should keep him?
The thing is, can the Lakers actually find a trading partner who would give them what they deserve for him?
He's the most talented center in the NBA, not the most talented, the most athletic, the most dominant center in the NBA. I'm sure there's a team that would find him.
But what would they give up for him? That's the question.
Mm-hmm. I personally think that they should keep the roster how it is. I don't see the team has barely played with Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, and Dwight Howard. As of a few days ago, they only had 132 minutes playing together. And I think while Steve Nash has had a broken leg, while Kobe and Metta World Peace have obviously had career seasons for this late stage in their career, and Pau Gasol has also been injured, and Dwight Howard is coming off back surgery. For someone who's as dependent on his athleticism as Dwight Howard is, he doesn't look right himself. It's not. Yes, he does affect Pau Gasol, and I think Pau Gasol works better while he's by himself down low, and he's one of the most skilled big men the NBA has seen in a while, since obviously Tim Duncan as well and others. But they haven't had a chance to gel together and to become healthy together, and you're not going to get an adequate return on your investment to trade. To give up someone like Andrew Bynum and to trade big pieces like the Lakers did, it seems pretty shameful to trade the guy who you've been going for a half a season later. And Pau Gasol, you're going to get, 40 cents on the dollar. You're not going to get his adequate value because they're going to say, well, he's shooting, 43% from the field and he's not playing well. So why should I give up so much for him? Obviously, I would think if they can get something big, if they can get Brook Lopez, which I doubt they really can, honestly. Then maybe trade him and see if you can get a really good offer. But I don't think it's a desperation kind of move that the Magic need to make. I think that with 4 superstars like this, I think you need time with them. And I think that D'Antoni's scheme doesn't fit the team well. I think that his efforts defensively, they can become the best defensive team in the league if they get all the pieces together and to work together. Obviously, Steve Nash isn't a great defender, but no one wants to trade Steve Nash. He's great. He's one of the best passers in the NBA. And I think that with schematic changes and with the amount of talent, as a general manager, you want to put the most talent on the floor as possible. And I think that no move is necessary at this time. Okay.
I see your argument with getting the pieces, but the issue with Pau is they've been trying to trade him for a while now. He's on the bench. It's not that difficult to get his return because he might not be worth that much at the moment. He might be past his best days.
He can still do all the moves. You don't lose, as Tim Duncan has proved. With age, you don't lose your post moves.
I actually have an interesting stat about Pau Gasol. When Dwight Howard is on the floor and Pau Gasol is on the floor as well, Pau Gasol is averaging 17 points per every 48 minutes. And then when Dwight Howard is off the floor and Pau Gasol's on the floor, Pau Gasol's averaging 24 points for 48 minutes. So clearly he just breaks up that chemistry because when you throw it into him, it's a black hole. He's either going to try and make a post move, get it stripped, either make the post move or get fouled. He never kicks it out.
I think it's a similar thing with Andrew Bynum that they had, but the reason they brought in Dwight Howard was to get an athletic and better defensive version of Andrew Bynum. And I think that you can still develop chemistry between two big men. Obviously, right now it hasn't worked, but if you look at his brother in Memphis and Zach Randolph, that's a pretty comparable comparison. If you think about that, Marc Gasol is like the physical post-up guy who is more around the basket, and Zach Randolph, who also posts up, and he is also one of the most skilled big men in the NBA, and he's not a great defender either. Marc Gasol shadows a lot of Zach Randolph's defensive deficiencies. And I think that if Dwight Howard can get healthy, get his head in the game, and just it's more of a mental thing, I think, than a talent thing. I think you can make it work together, and they do need three-point shooting. I think that's something that's really holding them back. But I don't think trading one of their stars is the right move.
The difference between those guys you mentioned and Dwight Howard is Dwight Howard can't post up. He's not a back down player. That Andrew Bynum could back down, which opened Pau Gasol up for the pick and roll game. And that's why this isn't working.
And plus, Dwight Howard never really had to deal with another post player. He had Ryan Anderson with the Magic, who he would just kick it out to, be open for three. He had Big Baby coming off the bench, but they never really spent that much time together on the court.
I just think the Magic, the way they were running it, I think Dwight Howard has to make adjustments. I mean, I don't think it's get rid of him. He can only play with three-point shooting because he's not a great passer out of the post. So he's not necessarily setting up everyone. It's not like a post, everybody comes in. Like, he'll pass it to Jameer Nelson. He'll move it, and they move like a couple passes. It's not necessarily built on just everybody clear out of the way. It's Dwight Howard's. Like, he can move in and around. They can make him do the cuts on the pick and roll. I think if he had just even a little sliver of a jump shot outside of 10 feet, which I think if he can become like Marc Gasol is for the Grizzlies, I think that's excellent chemistry, and their backcourt is strong. I think with Kobe Bryant, Metta World Peace guarding your team's best player on offense, I think they're a team that can be set up to do well if they make the playoffs. Obviously, the consistency and the effort isn't there, but I think those are things that can be fixed with coaching.
Paper champions.
Okay. And transitioning to our next question, which talks about the conference in which the Lakers are, the Western Conference, which has been strong once again this year with teams such as the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the San Antonio Spurs at the top three positions in the league, with the Thunder and the Spurs maintaining their success, while the Los Angeles Clippers have moved from being a mid-range playoff teams to being considered one of the elite teams in the league. So our next question for our NBA section is, which team is the best in the Western Conference and why? Mohammed?
I'll have to pick the San Antonio Spurs. They remind me a lot of Patriots. In the regular season, they look unbelievable. Well, the Patriots with the hype. Sorry, I have to make that clear. Because in the regular season, they look unbelievable, and they continue to play well, but in the playoffs, they disappoint. I think this year might be different, specifically because with Oklahoma City losing James Harden, who we now know is a very special player, they are one of the few teams who can actually play half court, full court, whichever court you want to play. Because Tony Parker is having a strong year. Somehow Tim Duncan can still slow this game down, and they have so many ways to beat you. They pretty much run a 10-man rotation. They have young players improving with Neal, Leonard, Splitter. So I really believe that this team can take and beat any team in the West. And they're on an 8-game win streak right now, so it's being proven.
I think when you talk about the best team, you also have to talk about what they do in the playoffs. Currently, I believe the Oklahoma City Thunder are the best team in the Western Conference. We can talk about Kevin Durant, obviously. Everyone knows he's top 2 players in the league, you can debate whether
Yes.
LeBron James or
Right.
Kevin Durant are better, but there's nobody else in that conversation. His scoring, obviously unbelievable. I believe he's the best scorer in the game. Personally, he's got incredible range, and he's very athletic. Can get to the rim too. But I think the reason that they're way more successful this year than they were last year is because of Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook right now is averaging 22.5 points per game, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds. I mean, that production never came out of him beforehand. Everyone was talking about how much he was shooting, how he really wasn't a traditional point guard, but now he's really improved his game to the point where the Thunder are maybe challenging the Heat for a title, especially since the Heat are struggling right now. I mean, you have Kevin Martin coming off the bench instead of James Harden. It's a little bit of a drop down with the way Harden's been playing, but I believe all around they're a great team and they can challenge any team in the Western Conference.
I also will have to agree with Michael that the Thunder are the best team in the West right now. And while I think that if you looked just purely at what they've done in the regular season, I'd say the Spurs have done more with less, meaning that they've accomplished more with less talent on the floor. And I think that once it comes down to playoff time, that the Thunder are more athletic, and they have the better star power with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. And also another player who has really made a difference for the Thunder is Serge Ibaka, which I predicted would be one of the improving players of the NBA. Just a little self-credit there. But I think that they have set, while you said that they do have deficiencies without James Harden, who last year was the main playmaker. He was the one who made other people better and made all his teammates better. And I think that, as Michael noted, Russell Westbrook has done much, much better. While his shooting selection isn't always the best, but he's getting better. He's averaging 2 more assists a game. He's setting up his teammates. And also another one who has improved his playmaking is Kevin Durant. He's averaging 4 assists a game now, which he previously was averaging in the low 3s range, which is also important because as he is the best pure scorer in the league, just if you think about just an isolation play, one-on-one, he can make any shot in any spot on the court, obviously within reasonable range, obviously. But they've been able to work with each other, and I think Kevin Martin adds an improved and more consistent three-point shooting. And while James Harden has been awesome in Houston, and he's maybe one of the top 15 players in the league, where was he in the finals last year? Outside of Game 2, which was the game they won, he did nothing. All he did was turn over the ball, shoot a low percentage. He looked lost in the NBA Finals. And this Thunder team is more equipped to handle his deficiencies. And all Kevin Martin has to do is come in, shoot threes, and wait for the help defense to help him on defense. I mean, he's not a great defender, but they still have Serge Ibaka, one of the top shot blockers. Kendrick Perkins can match up with any big man defensively. Obviously, offensively, he's not a world class or anything. But I just think that when it comes down to playoff time, the Thunder are the ones that are going to be coming through in the playoffs.
No, I changed my mind. No, I didn't change my mind. No, I have multiple things saved to your guys' argument. The insist addition for each Kevin Durant and Westbrook's more of them picking up the slack for James Harden being gone. It's not that they've improved. Russell Westbrook is still shooting the same amount of shots as Kevin Durant, which is a problem. And shooting around 40%, which is also not good.
There's not really any slack that that they need to pick up from James Harden. Kevin Martin is averaging around the same amount of points as he did last year.
Kevin Martin is averaging 15 points.
Mm-hmm. And James Harden averaged
17.
17.
Well, another thing I'll add is they're first in the league with 106 points per game. And you don't think of them as like a super run and gun team. Obviously, they're athletic. They want to get down the floor, and they want to get points before you can get back. And they don't play the necessarily like European style that the Spurs have taken under, where they have all 5 guys can shoot from all 5 spots on the floor, and they play. They're not as fast paced of a team as the Spurs have been over the years, and yet they're still averaging more points, and they're still playing great defense. They're not tops in the league in points per game, but obviously when you score a lot, you're going to give up a few more points a game. They're averaging they are allowed 97 points per game, so they're they're doing well on both sides. They're 14th in rebounding, while actually 10th in rebounding, while the Spurs are 20th in rebounding and 14th in points allowed. So it's a good balance of scoring, rebounding, and on the defensive end. I think they're a very complete team.
I think it takes, as we saw against the Lakers, one bad shooting night from Russell Westbrook, or a bad shooting streak of nights from Russell Westbrook, and this team is toast.
I mean, you can't point to one game, though. The Spurs have lost twice to the Clippers. The Spurs have definitely had enough terrible games. And yes, I did have a little Clippers input there from Los Angeles.
Yeah.
But, the Thunder just have the most complete team with Scott Brooks is doing an amazing job. The fans in Oklahoma City are arguably like the best in the NBA, and I just don't see how a team can overcome them in the playoffs.
And also, just mentioning the Clippers again, who I think are clearly the third best team. I think the Clippers could challenge the Spurs in a playoff series. They're as deep as the Spurs. They are more athletic than the Spurs. They are third in assists, and the Spurs are first in assists. They pass just as well as them. And you can argue that just across the board, the Clippers are better almost at every spot. You think about Chris Paul or Tony Parker. Chris Paul. At shooting guard, you'll take... Ginobili hasn't played a full rotation.
Yeah, he's not playing well this season at all.
Has not played a full season. And then at the small forward position, I'll take Kawhi Leonard. And then Griffin and Duncan is pretty even.
I would take Duncan.
I would even take Duncan. But
Yeah,
I would
Duncan.
definitely take
And then
DeAndre.
DeAndre Jordan, certainly over Tiago Splitter as a defensive stopper. Even that being the second best team is in question. And also, Oklahoma City is 2-0 against the Clippers, and they're 1-1 against San Antonio, but their loss is on opening night on a game-winning shot by the point guard Tony Parker. So I think that in the playoffs, in a 7-game series, the Thunder are the better team. I think the Spurs easily could beat them in a shorter series, but you talking about beating them 4 times? No way.
I want this on tape. When San Antonio plays Oklahoma City in the Western Conference, 4-2 Spurs.
All right. When the Clippers play the Oklahoma City Thunder in the playoffs, I'm calling Clippers in 7.
I think it'll be Clippers and the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, assuming the seeding works out. I don't think Memphis maybe could give them a run, but not really. I think I'm going to have to say Thunder in 6 against the Clippers. I think the Clippers, they're not, I don't know if they're ready yet. They're good, but I don't know if they're ready for Kevin Durant. I don't know who can stop them on that team. Maybe Barnes. I don't know. But
we'll see.
Yeah.
You heard it here,
Okay.
EPSN.
All right. So you have heard that here first. Those are our Western Conference championship picks, and that concludes our NBA section for today. And that concludes the show for today. In fact, today is Josh's last show for our freshman year, and he has done a tremendous job throughout the show, including our introductory show in which we went at it for about 15 minutes about the Eagles. He's picked much better in the playoff games than I did. Obviously, I picked the Steelers to win the AFC North, and he got all the playoff teams right. And it's been a great show today, and been happy to have Josh on the show. And for EPSN, this is Sean Farshi.
Michael Dix.
Josh Neves.
Muhammad Omar.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a good night.